Well, good afternoon, damn fam. Today, recording day is Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. And today we get to talk of betrayal. Ooh, the juicy stuff. Um, the Gordie Howe Bridge, of course, as you know, has opened, and we have some data on the first day of operations and some opinion pieces about how Canada has been betrayed on that. And we'll talk a little bit of by elections, and that will lead us into some developments on the Billy Bishop Airport or Toronto Airport, Island Airport file and a case of perceived betrayal there. So, kids and cubs, grab your favorite bevy and make yourself comfortable because we also have a lot of Canadians to celebrate with a great performance at the Commonwealth Games yesterday. And like I said, make yourself comfortable because here we go.
Good morning, this is the Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, or I should say good afternoon where I am, and welcome to season 6 and episode 955, I believe it is. I really have to start getting better at remembering my show numbers of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100%. Well, right here, Canadian. Today, recording day is Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. And it is a great day here at the Beaver Lodge, but not as rainy as we expected. And same thing yesterday. It was supposed to be 100% chance rain all day yesterday and all day today. And yesterday was mostly not a rainy day. And so far, not today as well. Kind of interesting that it's kind of panned out that way. But rainy enough and intermittently rainy enough that not necessarily that the ground has enough time to dry for a match of tennis, let's say. And thank you, Kit Uniquely Jillian. Yes, 9:55. I did not need to correct myself. Um, I had a little thing today with the numbers. I realized that the thumbnail on yesterday's show didn't actually have the right date and show number. So when I was doing this one, I was changing the other one, and then I just went out to say the number, and it's like, and then I was preparing tomorrow's. It's like, is that 9:54, 55, or 56 now? Because I've used all three numbers this morning. All right. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvin Moon Publishing, and psychictarot.ca. Damn fam, how is your mental health today? I am doing very well. I am still floating off that physio treatment from 2 days ago. Just the lack of tension on this whole side of my face and my neck is, oh, I just, I just can't explain it, because what was normal for me uh, was constantly seized up and bunched up and whatnot, and just that it is gone in that particular spot. I still have it in other places, but in that one particular spot, which was particularly painful, um, I, I, well, number one, I slept so well last night. So that's one of the reasons I am late. Uh, I did not go to bed ridiculously late, but I did go to bed a little later than my normal because yesterday was date night. My Beaver sweetie and I went out to check out the RuPaul movie, Stop That Train, because we thought, would be a nice idea. And given that at the campground, there was sort of like this communal watching of an episode of Drag Race, but one which RuPaul was not figured because it was one of the spin-offs. Um, we decided to go watch it, and have to say, I did not have the highest of expectations. Not going in saying that it was going to be definitely not going in expecting Gone with the Wind or Casablanca. Let's put it that way. But didn't necessarily have the highest expectations, but um, considering the level of success that RuPaul is having with her show, and I have to say, it's not something I've really watched. That episode, I think, at the campground was only the second one I've ever seen in the whole series. So I'm not familiar with it at all, for all intents and purposes. Um, but I've seen, that, RuPaul has been winning tons of Emmy awards and stuff like that with it. And, with all the spin-offs and all that kind of stuff, clearly it's a franchise and clearly it's doing well. And in our community, go to events and there are people that have been on the show that are showing up and doing performances, and you see it, contestant from RuPaul's Drag Race Canada. So I know it's big. And given that, um, I still had, some expectations that it is going to be good, the level of quality that this person puts into their work from the get-go, and if you follow their career and, particularly the longevity of their career and considering how unique their career is to have a career that is that long, right? And that successful is rather astounding achievement. So I know it's going to be a quality production, but I also know it's probably not gonna be, one of those $50 million budget, $100 million budget Hollywood movies. So didn't really know what to expect other than, it's gonna be campy and it's gonna be funny and all that kind of stuff. And before going to check it out, we went on Rotten Tomatoes because I was trying to convince, Alex whether or not we should go, and it had a really good rating on Rotten Tomatoes. We're thinking, okay, what? Maybe this thing has potential. All right, well, more potential than I thought. I thought, maybe I was underestimating this. So we went in and we watched it, and it is not clearly right a deep movie. Think more Naked Gun, right? Type style. Uh, it was it I really enjoyed it. It was a good romp. So, if you ever need, I'm not sure how long it's going to be in the theater, because, this type of film, doesn't necessarily have a big audience. But if you want just a good romp with a little bit of naughty humor, nothing is vulgar, nothing is obscene. So, for those of you who are wondering, you can take your teenager to it and it's fine. um, but it's just a good little romp. It's just a good little romp. And it's well done. It's nice. It's tidy. There's a lot of cameos in there. A lot of cameos. Spotting the stars is also a thing that is interesting. Um, uh, but it's really in the vein a bit of like Airplane and Naked Gun and that type of stuff. So I had a good time. My Beaver sweetie had a good time, and he's much tougher to please than I am on this type of stuff. So if you want a night out and just go do something silly and relaxing, take your mind off all the doom scrolling and how uh, points at everything the world is right now. And I've seen RuPaul in an interview talking about that, and that's basically in her character as Ru. That's what she was saying, pretty much, right? The world is a bit much right now, so sometimes you just need to laugh. So if you have an opportunity, check it out. Stop that train. Uh, quite, I was pleasantly surprised by how good it was. How about that? There you go. Um, all right. Let's get into it, kits and cubs. We have a couple of updates and things for you before we get into the meat of it. The first thing I need to mention is I'm not so much gentle correction, but uh, completion of a task that was left incomplete when I was talking about our 12 athletes who 2 days ago, or the 12 medals we got 2 days ago at the Commonwealth Games, and I couldn't find the name of the 12th person in the articles I was reading. I did do the research as I promised because this Canadian did us proud and deserves the attention. And it is Anne Sophie Tachereau, and she won a silver medal in the 58 kilogram category in weightlifting. So there were two weightlifting medals on that day. And the Kits and Cubs, since we did not have the opportunity to mention her yesterday, I figured we can maybe make up for it somewhat uh, by showing her. Whoops. So uh, this is Anne-Sophie Tachereau. I'm not sure. Oh, this is from the Commonwealth Games. So hopefully we won't get dinged for the video while it was moving. But the sound was off, so hopefully that will help with that. But this is, oh, well, what happened here? That's really weird. Okay. We are not seeing the same things on our screen right now, kits and cubs. I am so sorry for that. But if you see here on the side, I was hoping I was hoping I can make this bigger, but I cannot do that. Okay. So this is a little, there we go. And this is Anne-Sophie Tachereau from the games there, winning her, well, in competition and picking up the silver medal. Let's try this one more time because I don't think it worked. There we go. It's one of those mornings, kids and cubs. Uh, so there you have it. Um, so I wanted to put that out there, make sure I complete the record on that, and we have more people to celebrate today because I picked up 14 medals yesterday. Team Canada is doing well after yesterday sitting in second place at the medal table at the Commonwealth Games. Usually we tend to finish in third over there, but so far in second with the Australians, the athletic powerhouse that they are, dominating the medal standings there at the moment, as has become uh, the case as usual again. All right. Okay. I am looking at my chat, and there's something here from Uniquely Jillian talking about two different vibes that has temporarily thrown me because of the phrasing. And I'm going a little earlier. And now I'm seeing the Pam Anderson games. All contestants have huge boobs. All right. So clearly, the chat, when I go back and read it, is going to be interesting. Um, one of the reasons Kids and Cubs also I should explain before we go into it that I am starting at noon today is after having slept in and, I had started to prepare the show yesterday. I had gathered news and stuff, but I didn't go to bed inspired with any particular theme. And then I woke up this morning and there was more news and I added it together. And I really wasn't able to find anything specifically. It was just going to be this hodgepodge of stories. And, I like to take stories and weave them together a bit and sort of create a narrative or a thread through them for you to try to tell a story every day of some kind, or one or two stories if I have two distinct subjects. Um, I really just could not find anything. And then, I basically started doing this thing where I had these groups of stories and blocks and I was moving them around to try to see. And what happened is that there was, number one, just too much damn news, and there were links between two different blocks of things, but that didn't necessarily lead anywhere. And once I found, eventually, there were two that went together that led to a path that I could bring, a certain amount of stories to you in sort of a thread and a narrative that would make sense. And then I thought, okay, I can go ahead with that. And when that happened, it was about 10:15 this morning. Um, And I thought, okay, well, I can start something for about 10:45 or 11 or something, but the odd time I've needed to do that, either because of a doctor appointment or something like that, the number of viewers that got to see the show or enjoy the show didn't necessarily match up with what normally happens when we do it earlier. So I thought, as an experiment, if we tried it around noon, because that gives people in our time zone who might have a little time off at lunch or whatnot and would like to check in for a little bit. They have a chance to come in and say hello, and then it gives us a chance to say hello to people from other parts of the country that normally don't get to join us in the morning. So I figured, why not try a nooner? So there's a bit of a scientific experiment going on today, and you are all part of it. So I just wanted to see what would happen. So that kind of explains the start, because I was ready to go a little earlier, but then I thought, let's see if maybe another start time can result in a better, not better, not better, because the audience is always absolutely wonderful and the audience is always perfect and the audience is always right, but more plentiful audience. So more better, more in quantity. Uh, so nice save, Douglas. Nice save. All right. So that's what's going on today as well. So I live with a scientist. So I had a hypothesis, and today I am testing it. So this is welcome to my welcome to the Eager Beaver laboratories. All right, two other bits of news to mention today before we get into it, and it's sad news because we will be talking about some passings of some pretty key players in Canadian political history. The first is the father of Peter MacKay, if you happen to be aware of him, if you're of that vintage, former leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada, when we did have one, who was the person who sealed the deal from that side for the merger that led to what is now known as the Conservative Party of Canada. Um, Back in the days of the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada, that's when we called our conservatives Tories. A lot of people in the media still refer to them as Tories. The current version of conservatives are definitely not Tories. When that merger happened, that's when the Tory movement pretty much died in terms of having official representation at the federal level. Of course, there are still some actual genuine Tories in Canada right now, and a lot of them are supporting Mark Carney because they kind of see him as one. So, or the closest thing to it, at least. But Peter MacKay's father, Elmer MacKay, was also in politics for quite a while. This is a bit of um, uh, quite an established political family. Elmer MacKay, a longtime former Progressive Conservative MP and cabinet minister, and the father of former MP Peter MacKay, has died. He was 89. Peter MacKay posted the news on X on Friday. Quote, his was an extraordinary life, collecting legions of friends, leaving a legacy of hard work and public service, the Post reads. He loved the forest, poetry, sport, law, and good debate, the Yankees, and especially his family. Deeply missed and alive in our hearts, sleep well, Pop. You earned your rest. Elmer MacKay was first elected as MP for Central Nova in 1971 during a by-election. He was subsequently re-elected and then resigned his seat in 1983, so newly elected leader Brian Mulroney could run in that riding. MacKay was elected once again in the 1984 election and continued serving as MP until 1993 when he stepped down as a cabinet minister and did not seek the seat in that fall's election. Pardon me. If you'll excuse me for a second, I have to clear my throat. Here, I have Kit Saucy saying, I thought Elmer passed last month. Maybe that was another Nova Scotia politician. A couple have passed. Um, that This here is dated July 24th. So it's a couple of days ago, but yeah, not that long ago. Um, the article goes on to say MacKay held various ministerial portfolios, including regional economic expansion, Solicitor General, National Revenue, Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, and Public Works. In a Facebook post on Friday, Premier Tim Houston said he was saddened by MacKay's death, calling him one of Pictou County's greatest representatives, who, quote, never lost sight of his Pictou County roots. Elmer kept his name and number in the phone book so you could always get hold of him. Over the years, our MLA offices would often hear from Elmer if he was talking to a person he thought we might be able to help. He was a great person who was always eager to help people, wrote Houston, who is the MLA for Pictou East. For those of us from Pictou County, the MacKay name has been part of the fabric of public life for as long as most of us can remember. Elmer set that standard, and he set it high. In a statement posted Friday on X, Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre called MacKay a wonderful friend and mentor, whose advice Poilievre regularly sought. Poilievre said in addition to being a selfless public servant, MacKay was simply a, quote, legend. The people loved Elmer, and he loved them. In Nova Scotia, I still hear stories of Elmer showing up at the homes of less fortunate right before Christmas with a bundle of gifts and a fresh turkey for supper, never publicizing his generosity, he wrote. Poilievre noted that MacKay promoted the East Coast pushing for the Confederation Bridge and continuous ferry service between PEI and Nova Scotia, and that he and his wife Sharon helped build a new SPCA facility in recent years. Quote, all in all, he was a remarkable man. I remember at one of my rallies, he rose in the middle of my speech to summarize what I was saying by quoting Shakespeare at length, without notes or notice, Polyev wrote. He was also a stubborn Scot. The other day, I heard he had taken a fall and hurt his hip. I called him up, and he was as sharp as a tack. He told his favorite jokes and defiantly recited Barton's ballad. I am hurt, but I am not slain. I'll lay me down and bleed a while, and then rise and fight again. So, Elmer McKay. Um, again, back in the days when conservatives were different, came from a different stock. You could leave them alone unsupervised with a pack of matches, and not be worried that they'd burn down the house. I miss those days. In the Chronicle Herald in Halifax, the obituary for Elmer McKay reads, The Honorable Elmer McKay, PCKCBA LLB. Elmer McIntosh McKay, a proud and well-respected Pictonian, passed away on July 24th, 2026 at the age of 89. Elmer would often say, I wouldn't ever want to live anywhere else. Pictou County was his home, and Lorne the center of his universe. He held a profound love and respect for his parents, Gordon and Laura McKay. From his father, who was a strong and knowledgeable woodsman, Elmer learned to revere and care for the forests that surrounded him, as well as the value of hard work. From his mother, he inherited a spirit of kindness and humility that shaped all his relationships. His beloved sister Margaret was his lifelong confidant and dearest friend. Together, they shared a deep devotion to family, friends, and to caring for animals, both domestic and wild. Elmer's lifelong thirst for knowledge began in a one-room schoolhouse in Lorne and carried him through Acadia University and Dalhousie Law School. An avid reader, he had a remarkable memory for historical facts, poetry, music, and sports, especially when it came to his beloved New York Yankees. He enjoyed the challenge of quoting verbatim authors and speakers he respected. He began his law career in New Glasgow, where he built a very busy and successful law practice. His 50 years of practicing law in Nova Scotia was deservedly recognized by the Nova Scotia Bariters Society. Elmer, however, remained just as much at home behind a tractor's steering wheel as behind a podium. Elmer was a successful businessman, being the first to bring cable TV to Pictou County, and was a proud Mason and Shriner for almost 60 years. In 1971, he was elected as Member of Parliament for Central Nova, a role he proudly held for 22 years. He served with distinction in several cabinet positions, including Minister of Public Works, Solicitor General, Minister of Revenue, and Minister of the Atlantic Opportunities Agency. Dedicated to his constituents, he championed projects that left a lasting impact, including the DeCoste Centre, the Pictou Justice Centre, and the Confederation Bridge linking New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island. Elmer always had a special spot in his heart for Prince Edward Island. More recently, Elmer played a role in the creation of the SPCA's state-of-the-art facility in Pictou County. Advocacy for people and animals alike was central to his life's purpose. Elmer shared more than 32 years of marriage with his wife Sharon Loy, who was always by his side. Sharon was the love of his life. Together they cherished simple joys, long drives along country roads, sunsets from their sunroom, and watching the tens of thousands of trees Elmer had planted and nurtured flourish across the landscape. Elmer was the proud father of 5 children and 14 grandchildren. Sethlyn and her husband Gary, and the grandchild Aldara, Peter and his wife Danzanine, and grandchildren Kian, Valentina, and Caledon, Mary Louise and her husband Rob, with grandchildren Ethan, Bredden, and Fiona, Andy and his wife Sol, with grandchildren Lucia, Isabella, and James, Rebecca and her husband Michael, with grandchildren Max, Jemima, Fletcher, and Imagine. Elmer took great pride in the success of his children and grandchildren and their shared love of sports. Over the years, he traveled to watch Yankee games with his sons Peter and Andy and talked every day on the phone with them and his daughters. His grandchildren brought joy to him and pleasure in watching them grow and succeed in their many activities. He leaves behind his brother-in-law Doug Loy and his exceptional personal assistant Novell Crosby, both of whom had much admiration and respect for him. Elmer so very much appreciated the outstanding care Dr. McGregor McLean and Dr. Sarah Rammer provided for him over many years. They went above and beyond the call of duty. He was also blessed with many cherished friends, near and far, whose companionship enriched his life. Grateful for every blessing, Elmer lived with generosity, strength, and humility, though he will Though he accomplished much, he always downplayed his own efforts, preferring instead to shine a light on others. He will be remembered with warmth, admiration, and affection by all who were fortunate enough to know him. A private family burial will be held as per Elmer's wishes. Friends and family are invited to Summer Street Industries, 72 Park Street, New Glasgow, for a social gathering on Thursday, July 30th from 2 to 4 p.m. No flowers by request. Arrangements are under the direction of R.H. Porter Funeral Home, New Glasgow. And if you want to plant a tree, memory of Elmer McKay, you can do so. And I will include the link for that right here in the chat. There you go. Get some cubs. So there you go. Someone very, very important. Like I said, send the article here. The name of that family is pretty much synonymous with politics in that part of the country. The other person that we lost over the course of the last little while, this was a little earlier in the month of July, was Eddie Goldenberg. And this is by David Baxter of the Canadian Press. And Eddie Goldenberg may not be a name that has a face you remember because he was more behind the scenes. Let me go and just put that up there. He is on the left with then Governor General David Johnston. Mr. Goldenberg was Jean Chrétien's chief of staff. Eddie Goldenberg, who served as chief of staff to former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, has died at the age of 77. A statement on Thursday from Global Public Affairs CEO Randy Petitpas, where Goldenberg worked, said Goldenberg died after a hard-fought battle with cancer. Chrétien said in a statement that he's lost, quote, a dear friend and the country's lost a great public servant. Quote, Eddie's deep personal loyalty and commitment to me through many years is something for which I will always be deeply grateful, but even more important was his profound love for Canada, Chrétien said. He fought to keep it united and worked hard to make it better. That was his true inspiration. Some seek fame or wealth. Eddie sought to make our country a better place for all its citizens. The former Prime Minister said that Canada owes Goldenberg a debt for his public service work, including contributing to the patriation of the Constitution. Sorry, let's try that again. The former Prime Minister said that Canada owes Goldenberg a debt for his public service work, including contributing to the patriation of the Constitution in the 1980s, work on restoring the country's financial health in the 1990s, and investing in the brains and talents of the young people in the 2000s. Originally from Montreal, Goldenberg was a lawyer by trade and spent a decade as a senior policy advisor for Chrétien before ultimately being named his chief of staff. Goldenberg was a contributing author to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and was invested into the Order of Canada in 2014 for his decades of public service. He was seen as an elder statesman in the Liberal Party. Petitpas says Goldenberg remained involved in client work, including working with former Governor General David Johnston to attract researchers to Canada right up until the last few months of his life. Bruce Heyman, a former U.S. ambassador to Canada, said Goldenberg had a unique way of bridging gaps between the world of civil service and business. Quote, he has been throughout these years deeply passionate about Canada as a country, the Canadian government and direction. He wasn't shy about speaking up and speaking out, Heyman said. There are very few leaders that are out there over time that have been able to bring together public service, business, and philanthropy in society in this way, and he embodied much of that. Heyman said he wouldn't be CEO of Power Sustainable, a company started by Chrétien's grandson, Olivier Desmarais, if it weren't for a recommendation from Goldenberg. Heyman added he'd learned many lessons in navigating public policy and business from Goldenberg, the most important of which is to listen and ask lots of questions. Quote, he would carefully think through how to navigate more complex issues than some people may be quick to judge, he said. He'd take some time and think through issues and then come up with recommendations and be open to dialogue and debate about them. And on a side note from this here, Canada, and Damn Fam, Mr. Bruce Heyman is probably the gold standard in ambassadors, in particular U.S. ambassadors to Canada. This is a man who did the job incredibly well for his country and in a manner that was incredibly dignified. And he was a man who, if he was not a Canadaphile before he got here, he certainly became one while he was here. Uh, it has been some time that he's been ambassador of the United States to Canada, and he is still always, always, always promoting Canada. He genuinely loves this place. If there's anybody we could make an honorary Canadian that came from the United States, it would be this man. So I put a lot of stock into what he says. Probably best U.S. ambassador to Canada we've ever had. Seriously. I would love to be able to get him on the show one day. I would just love it. But yes, there you go. So two big losses. Eddie Goldenberg may not have heard of him, but for a better part of 3 decades, right? Maybe even more. Behind the scenes, making things happen. Always in the room when the very big issues were playing themselves out. So sometimes you don't have to be upfront and getting all the glory to be making a big difference. So two big losses in terms of the older school of politics, pre-internet, pre-24/7 news that are that we've lost here. All right. More about the main topics of our show now that we've gotten through the couple of little announcements. The Ambassador Bridge, it opened, and there are a few things going on. First, because, well, conservatives got to be conservatives. According to the Canadian press, a House of Commons committee is holding a special meeting today on the Gordie Howe International Bridge as the Liberal government continues to face questions about its revenue sharing agreement with the U.S. The meeting is expected to be mostly administrative, with MPs set to discuss the scope of the study and a list of witnesses. The proposed agreement in principle to open the bridge, which opened to motorists on Monday, says Canada will share half of the net toll revenues with the U.S. for the next 15 years. Prime Minister Mark Carney said on previous occasions that the tolls would not be split with the United States until after Canada's debt to build the bridge is paid back. Speaking to reporters in Charlottetown last week, Carney acknowledged he was not as clear as he could have been when explaining the nature of the deal in recent weeks. Conservative MP Macaulay said on social media last week that he would convene a committee meeting to allow MPs to get to the bottom of the matter. I'm not sure what matter there is to get to the bottom of. The calls from the Conservatives were to release the text of the agreement. The text of the agreement was released. It did not match up with what the Prime Minister said on 2 occasions. The Prime Minister was asked about it point blank in the press conference. We showed you the question and the answer. He answered it. At the time, that answer seemed to satisfy everyone in the room. I guess if there's anything more to get to the bottom of, it would be a similar question that I would have, in that how does someone with the experience of Mark Carney make that kind of mistake? But then again, everybody's human, and he has a lot going on. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that someone makes that kind of mistake. Right? But is the fact that he made a misstatement twice that he clearly was not going to triple or quadruple down on, because he did release the text of it, and then when asked about it, answered. And while you can still be upset with him about the misstatement or choose to view it as a lie, if you want to wear the darkest lenses possible and said he intentionally lied because he had something to hide and now he got caught. Well, he did get caught. He got caught in at least a mistake. I don't know about intent. He doesn't seem to have a history of this or it being a habitual pattern. But whether it was a lie or a misstatement, the text was released. He was asked about it point blank, and he didn't blame anybody or anything and said, I could have explained that better. Again, statistically possible that there could be some stuff about that's not true, but at the moment, I'm seeing this as a refreshing change. When someone makes a mistake, usually this is not the response that we get. But also, just because it's not the usual response that we get, and he seems to have taken ownership for the mistake, um, doesn't mean we necessarily got the real reason for which the mistake occurred in the first place, and how much of it was intentional and how much of it was just fumbling the question. And we'll never know. We'll never know. I'm not sure what this type of committee investigation will do, but we will never know. The only thing we can do is make note of it, have it there. This has happened one time. If there's something later on in the future that happens that sort of follows a similar pattern, you can link it back to this one. If you see it happen again, okay. You try to look at what was common about those three instances to see if there's any particular trigger for that type of behavior that seems to be happening more times than it should. But at this stage in the game, people do make mistakes. It's noted, it's put in the filing cabinet, it's there to refer to should we need it again. But right now, we don't know, right? So I'm not sure how much investigation this requires at the moment or what there is to get to the bottom of. Because the only thing to get to the bottom of is how Mark Carney could have potentially made that mistake if you don't believe it was a mistake that he was trying to hide something. And the only way to do that would be to get him to come into the committee and ask him, and then assume that if he is lying now, that he would use that moment to tell the full truth. The likelihood of all of that is less than slim to none. So, doesn't seem a thing that's particularly useful for spending time and government resources, which are funded by the taxpayer. But that's what the conservatives want to do. Then if that's what they want to put out there as the work of a government in waiting, that's their choice. It's a free country. With regard to the bridge, however, first day of operations, we have some numbers from Lori Berg at CTV News Windsor. It says here, the Gordie Howe International Bridge got off to a strong start on opening day, with thousands of drivers making the trip between Windsor, Ontario and Detroit, Michigan within hours of the bridge opening. Speaking on AM 800's Mornings with Mike, Meg, Heather, and Speaking on AM 800's Mornings with Mike and Meg, Heather Grondin, Chief Relations Officer for the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority, said approximately 7,500 vehicles crossed the bridge during its first 12 hours of operation. Officials had expected plenty of interest from the public, but said it was difficult to predict exactly how many motorists would use the news crossing on its first day. The bridge also welcomed traffic earlier than originally planned. While the official opening was scheduled for noon, crews were able to complete final traffic management work ahead of schedule. Oh, well, there you go. Quote, the traffic management work that needed to take place to remove the barriers to get everything set within the land on the bridge itself went very smoothly, said Grondin. So we were actually able to start having vehicles to cross right around 10 a.m., 10:30, which was great. Grondin said the first day went smoothly overall, despite drivers adjusting to new traffic patterns. Quote, there's lots of new signage, lots of new routes that people need to take, she said. So pre-planning and everyone getting acquainted with the new way of driving through the bridge is going to take a little bit of time. She added that officials anticipated passenger vehicles would make up the majority of opening day traffic while commercial carriers worked through the documentation required to use the new crossing. Quote, understanding from a commercial perspective, there's paperwork they need to do before they can cross the bridge, Grondin said. So we understood that there might not be a lot of commercial traffic, but we also understood that there's going to be a lot of interest from personal vehicles for people who really wanted to experience the first day. The $6.4 billion Gordie Howe International Bridge took 8 years to build. The new international crossing provides a direct highway to highway connection between Highway 401 in Ontario and Interstate 75 in Michigan. The 2.5-kilometer bridge features 16 toll lanes, and 60 inspection lanes. And we have here in the article from CTV a little bit of an image of the bridge itself with its cable structure and an image of the opening uh, ceremony from the Canadian side held on the 24th, where we had the ribbon cutting for that. So there you have here, you see uh, architecturally, it is pretty stunning as a bridge with all these cables. I think it was 214 or 241 cables, something like that. And then, of course, you have Minister Robertson here, Canadian ambassador to the United States, Wiseman here, Ontario Premier Doug Ford over here, and the scissors cutting the ribbon for to officially open the bridge, at least from the Canadian side. There you go. Let's see what else is there. Yes, exactly. And that was the caption does confirm that that was the Canadian ceremony on the 24th. So it's open. 7,500, mostly passenger vehicles, of course. You know, a lot of them probably checking it out. Um, Spotted this the other day, and I thought it was an interesting way because we've heard reporting on this from the Canadian side, but what would be the reporting on this from the American side, from a neutral source? So again, one of the press wires, the Associated Press, and it seems that this take on it was good enough that Fortune thought it would pick it up and redistribute it. So a magazine or a publication like Fortune believes that this take here is worth sharing. So let's look at what this story is being reported as being in a reputable source on the American side. And this is from July 27th. Traffic by the Associated Press. Traffic is set to start flowing Monday across a new bridge over the Detroit River that will serve as a critical route for trade, jobs, and tourism between Canada and the U.S. Last week, Canada celebrated the Gordie Howe International Bridge with a ribbon-cutting ceremony in Windsor, Ontario, to mark the completion of the multi-billion-dollar multi-year project. U.S. and Michigan representatives were uninvited from Friday's gathering after President Donald Trump suddenly announced 50% tariffs on Canadian goods entering America. The bridge is named for Howe, a Canadian icon known as Mr. Hockey, who wore number 9 while playing on the other side of the Detroit River for the NHL's Detroit Red Wings. He died in 2016. More than 70% of Canada's exports go to the U.S., making America its largest trading partner, and Detroit is the number one port for truck traffic on the U.S.-Canada border, according to a U.S. Department of Transportation. I believe that number is under 70% now. It's probably in the mid to high 60s from the most latest data I remember. For nearly a century, the privately owned Ambassador Bridge has been the only route for large commercial trucks moving between the US and Canada at Detroit. Businesses say the new 6-lane span will be faster and less expensive. The span is 1.5 miles or 2.4 kilometers long and rises 151 feet or 46 meters above the river at its highest point. Pedestrians and bicyclists carrying proper identification will be able to cross it for free in a few weeks. Construction on the new bridge began in 2018 but took years, partly because of a global slowdown caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Canada paid to build the bridge at an estimated cost of $6.4 billion. A recent agreement says Canada will share some toll revenue with the United States for 15 years. Some toll revenue with the United States for 15 years. Interesting. That doesn't make it sound like a big win for Donald Trump. Trump praised his administration for that deal in a social media post while the Ontario event was in progress. "We changed the terms," he said. "Michigan will also get a share, but not until Canada's costs are recovered, likely decades from now." So again, a pressed wire, pretty much factual, not much editorializing. The only one you can see there, the choice of words, however, instead of 50% for some. Interesting. Interesting choice of words. Okay. Uh, Final one that we have here with regard to the bridge comes to us from the Walrus. And it's from David Moskrop, who we've had on the show before. And we should have again soon, actually. He's a good guy, really good guy, actually. One of the first people, actually, to express confidence in us. I think he was our very second guest, I think, as an interview project guest. Canadian curler Colin Hodgson was the first, and we had David Moskrop the second. So uh, he gave us a lot of legitimacy early on by agreeing to be on our show. So yeah, we should have him back. So this was his take on it. The Gordie Howe Bridge is what American betrayal looks like. As a symbol of Canada's relationship with the United States, it's a bit too on the nose, linking Windsor with Detroit and named after a Canadian hockey legend who played for an American team. The Gordie Howe International Bridge sat empty for months, completed and useless, after Washington threatened to block the opening, then huffily cancelled the ceremony in June of this year. Today, the bridge, all 2.5 kilometers of its soaring cable-stayed deck, is finally open for business. That the bridge is doing what it was built to do is a good thing. The structure will handle a substantial share of Canada's busiest commercial gateway. Billions of dollars worth of cars, auto parts, machinery, food, pharmaceuticals, and other sundry goods will traverse each year along with friends, families, tourists, and business travelers. But the whole sorry episode is a reminder of the extent to which Donald Trump has built a bullying, sinister plutocracy that has utterly captured American economic and political life, and some of Canada's too. The story of what should have been a triumph of continental integration goes something like this. To ease travel times and facilitate trade, Canada agreed in 2012 to pony up the cash, ultimately $6.4 billion, to construct a new bridge and then earn that money back through tolls. It would be owned jointly between the government of Canada and the state of Michigan, with the former recouping costs for the capital outlay before splitting revenues with the state. This was, and it can't be repeated enough, an unusually generous arrangement. Then, in February, Trump made his opening demand a 50% ownership stake as the price for allowing the first vehicle through. One ostensible justification for the last minute renegotiation was his desire to, as per the CBC, rectify, quote, long-standing unfair trade practices. It was nothing more than a shakedown. Well, there might have been something more. Allegations of political interference cite the influence of the billionaire Maroon family, one of whom, Matthew Maroon, owns the aging Ambassador Bridge, also linking the two cities. The Maroons have long opposed the Gordie Howe Bridge, which would rival their own and presumably reduce traffic and tolls. Maroon donated $1 million US to the Trump-aligned MAGA Inc. Political Action Committee last January, and later met with Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick right before the US administration blocked the opening. Despite the accusations, there has been no proven quid pro quo or untoward dealings involving the Maroons and the Trump administration. However, Mike Levin, the representative from California's 49th congressional district, summed up the situation bluntly. My friends, it's corruption in plain sight. A government should work for the people, not for whoever writes the biggest check. Open, the bridge. The ribbon has now been cut. There isn't a lot to celebrate about how it happened. Canada was able to keep its original pact with Michigan, but only after agreeing to a second deal that for 15 years diverts half the bridge's net revenues into a U.S. regional development fund under Washington's sole control. We effectively paid to remove an obstacle Trump himself imposed. Tony Soprano would be proud. Plans for the bridge were in the works for decades before Trump crashed into the Oval Office. In 2000, 2001, transportation planners on both sides of the border looked at the Detroit River, noted the surging trade and mounting traffic, and warned of looming gridlock. They recommended a new international crossing. By 2004, both governments endorsed the idea, sending engineers to their drawing boards 8 years later. Throughout it all, Canada and America alternated between cooperation and competition. Canadian ministries joined the war in Afghanistan, sat out the war in Iraq, slugged it out over softwood lumber, and said no to the Continental Ballistic Missile Defense Program, as we otherwise leaned deeper into the US's cultural and economic orbit. The riverbanks formally became a work site in 2018, while the world's longest undefended border remains something almost everyone took for granted, along with Canada's sovereignty. The bridge was nothing more or less than physical proof embodied in concrete and steel of two erstwhile allies bound by history, proximity, markets, and social ties of varying kinds. For nearly 80 years, 11,000 for nearly 8 years, 11,000 workers logged millions of hours. Crews poured the foundations, raised the twin 220-meter towers, strung 216 cables, 216, not 14, and assembled the deck segment by segment. In 2021, Catherine McKenna, then Federal Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, called it a once-in-a-generation project, and indeed it was, and is. We ought not to romanticize the political order that made it possible. The implicit or explicit threats of American hegemony and power weren't invented in 2016 with Trump's arrival on the scene, but the Trump administration set about erasing a baseline of trust that existed for decades. His team favored the mafia school of negotiation: make an offer no one can refuse. He slapped tariffs on Canada, mused about leaving the he slapped tariffs on Canada, mused about leaving North Atlantic Treaty Organization allies to fend for themselves in the event of an attack, bullied Ottawa into spending more on defense, and all but called Canada a fake country, a la Vladimir Putin and Ukraine, while he, quote, joked about annexing us. Having gone all in on U.S. investment, supply chain integration, and defense partnerships, Canada was brought up short, terrified of what the abrupt departure from the baseline would mean for the future. On foreign trips and through diplomatic efforts, Prime Minister Mark Carney has been making the case that the U.S. is unreliable to the point of existential risk. Previously considered by global elites as the guarantor of the liberal world order, the home of the reserve currency, and the economic engine of the planet, the American empire is now sowing uncertainty that borders on chaos. So Carney is organizing a middle power strategy to adjust to and thrive within the new world order. Other countries are listening. And see, this is the difference between people who are actually paying attention to the words that are being said, only the words that are being said, and all of the words that are being said, versus the conservatives who add and omit words of their own and change and torque meanings. When we're talking about New World Order, when the conservatives talk about it, they're talking about it as if Carney is the one who is trying to create it and bring it about. The New World Order is being imposed upon us by the hegemons. We're just deciding on whether or not we adapt or assimilate. Right? It's adaptation. Recognizing that there is a new world order being formed does not mean that you are the one that is forming it. The conservatives want you to believe that it is one and the same. The conservatives want you to believe that this is just a speed bump and that we're going to go back to the old ways of doing things. We also said that before COVID. After COVID, we would go back to the old ways of doing things, and we haven't. Right? We're having all of this tension and stuff because a lot of people, there's a core of people that did not go back once COVID ended to how things were after COVID. There are a lot of people that are still stuck and will be forever stuck in 2020 and 2021 and 2022. That is their identity now. Something happened to them in those years where they were so personally aggrieved. and nothing will ever be the same, and they can't go back. We are always changed. We can't go back. We just can't go back. The type of trust that we had between our two countries, when it is broken like that, right? And if it was just Donald Trump, that would be one thing, but it was Donald Trump and how the entire Republican Party purged oppositional voices and decided to cater to that because that was working in the moment, and the way that the Democratic Party couldn't find its spine enough. And then the way the American people, even though we know it's not all Americans, voted this guy and their faction back in a second time after we saw and they saw everything that they did the first time, and after they openly campaigned the second time on doing worse. The, the trust was broken on so many levels. The notion that we are going back if the midterms happen and Trump gets neutered a bit, if there are actual elections and the Democrats win the control of all the houses, if we're all branches of government except the Supreme Court, of course. That's a lot of ifs, and that's a lot of hope. And not doing anything while we wait to see if all of that plays out leaves us as a sitting duck. There was something that happened. We were coasting. We had an agreement. We were integrating. And then one of the parties did something that was not predictable. They suddenly started exhibiting new behavior. And that new behavior is not good for us. We either change or we take it. And we've decided to change. We are adapting to a new world order that is being imposed upon us. We are not creating the new world order. And that new world order seems to be indicating that there's probably safety in numbers and in concerted action and coordinated action. And to that point, when David Moscrop says, previously considered by global elites as the guarantor of the liberal world order, the home of the reserve currency and the economic engine of the planet, the American empire is now sowing uncertainty that borders on chaos. So, Carney is organizing a middle power strategy to adjust to and thrive within the New World Order. Other countries are listening. The Gordie Howe Bridge fiasco stands as a reminder why such a strategy is necessary. A 6-lane span condemned to scenery for no good reason, and several that verge on the criminal, is what Aristotle might have called a failure of teleology. This is a new word to me. A failure of teleological realization. Okay. I do not know what that means. Teleological means relating to teleology, the philosophical idea that things exhibit design, purpose, or a final goal rather than just being driven by simple cause and effect. The word comes from the Greek root telos, meaning end or purpose. It is used to describe explanations or arguments that focus on the intended outcome or function of an object, action, or natural system. Okay. Interesting. All right. So that's what he is talking about here. Okay. Let's see. What happened here? Sorry, kits and cubs. Something disappeared for us. All right, I think the article closed or something. So let me see if I can just open it up again there. Sorry about that. There we go. Don't know why that happened here. All right. Sorry, I got stuck. I had no idea what teleological meant, and needed to understand that. There we go. So let's try that again. The Gordie Howe Bridge fiasco stands as a reminder why such a strategy is necessary. A 6-lane span condemned to scenery for no good reason, and several that verge on the criminal. This is what Aristotle might have called a failure of teleological realization. That is, a bridge being denied the very purpose it was built for. The fact that Canada managed to strike a deal doesn't mean that failure ends with the bridge. Even though it's better to have it open than not, the deal is suspect at best. Of course it is. The iron law of contemporary life is that things may seem grim, but they will get worse. Carney's concerns about the U.S. unreliability, after all, haven't stopped the Canadian government from expressing a willingness to integrate further with the Yankee menace. Deeper economic ties in key industries and new purchases of military hardware. Living next to the world's political, economic, and cultural superpower means you always find yourself within its gravitational pull, with little chance to escape or, when it comes down to it, no real desire to try, much less succeed. Today, trucks will roll, cars will cross, and governments will be let's try that again. Today, trucks will roll, cars will cross, and governments will begin collecting tolls. But the bridges will remain a monument to a broken bond that may take decades to fix and may never be fully repaired. And that's the point that I want to make here with that. When David Moscrop says, may not fully be repaired, right? It's like a crack in the mirror. Right, we've had this long relationship of trust that has gone all this whole time. And, it's not like we haven't been done wrong by the United States a few times along the way. But overall, right, never got to the point of musing aloud about annexing us. They can say that that's a joke. All they want. Or they can say, okay, well, that was the old administration. No, we're not like that. But you're always going to remember that. Right? It's like a crack in the mirror. Mirror might be still good. You stand over here to look into it, you can still get a full view. Or you can look and you can see the crack and ignore it. The crack's always there. You ignore it, but you always see it. And that's what's happened with the United States. When the Prime Minister says there's been a rupture, there has been a rupture. There's been a key defining moment where someone, one of the two people in the relationship, one of the two parties, changed the rules of the game on a dime without the consent of the other party. And that change was not in the other party's interest. And it certainly wasn't for their benefit. It's even existential. Right? So we have to adapt. So that's what we have with the bridge. The by-elections portion of our show has a couple little tidbits as we're learning more about this that give us a little extra idea on a strategy. For the riding of North Vancouver Capilano, which was the riding that Jonathan Wilkinson, former cabinet minister in the Trudeau government and now ambassador to the EU, which is how the seat became vacant, the Liberals have nominated Braden Cayley as their candidate. Braden Cayley is the deputy chief of staff. Sorry. Yes, it was the deputy chief of staff to Prime Minister Mark Carney and the national campaign coordinator. So you probably have a sense that Prime Minister Mark Carney would really like him to win that seat, and that the Liberals are probably going to put the resources that are needed for that to happen in a riding that they have won several times in a row. Uh, their main rival would probably be the NDP in this particular riding, uh, especially uh, considering that the party is doing much better in public opinion polling under the leadership of Avi Lewis, which is a good thing for it. In fact, public opinion polling seems to be indicating that at least in some polls, that the overwhelming majority, if not all, of the NDP gain is coming at the expense of the Conservatives at the moment. So good. The Conservatives have named Stephen Curran. The New Democrats haven't named anyone yet. The Greens have named Shelley Lucci. And the People's Party hasn't nominated anyone yet here. Now, I say the main rival would be New Democratic, but not necessarily so. In the past few elections, it has been the Conservative Party candidate who has finished second in this riding, and not the New Democratic one. So that is a little bit of interesting information here. And from what I can tell, looking at it since about 2004, the party's either gone liberal or the seat has either gone liberal or conservative. So there you go. With that, given public opinion is showing that Liberals are also doing well in British Columbia, specifically federally. There is very little chance, very little reason to suspect at this particular time, given all those chess pieces in place, that this is not a riding that the Liberals will keep. Chez Chicoutimi-Lefiard, which is the one that everybody has their eye on, um, I looked at that one before, noted that it was a rather reliable conservative seat if we were looking at the past three elections. But another reason, because right now public opinion polling was indicating that it was uh, there was a 3 point, it was a toss up between three parties within two percentages in public opinion, which is definitely within the margin of error here, which means it can go anyway. It's a complete toss up. And it is true that the Conservatives had won this in all the federal elections that we've had since 2018. So 2018, uh, there was a by election in 2018 that allowed Mr. Martel to take the seat. He retained it into the 2019 federal election, 2021 federal election, and 2025 federal election. But prior to that, it was a Liberal seat held by Denis Lemieux in 2015, and then a New Democratic seat held by Denis Morin in 2011, and then before that in 2008, a seat held by Robert Bouchard of the Bloc Québécois. So this is a seat that has been in all four hands. And when it was in the hands of Robert Bouchard, it was in Robert Bouchard's for three elections. Right? So there you have it there. So this is a very, very competitive race. And data that we have seen from that has been compiled by Eric Grenier, who's another public opinion pollster and has his own methodology. He sees the Liberals with a +5 margin in that electoral district, which could be around the margin of error or a little superior to that, depending on how many people were polled. And if that is the case, that would indicate that the Liberals are pulling away in this three uh, party race for that seat. And that would always be a good thing as well, at least for for the Liberal fortunes, I should say, because what they are trying to do here strategically, by choosing these two seats as well as the one that they just had vacated by Richard Martel, but not putting the Bloc Québécois seat in for right now, is right. They need one seat to maintain the majority, right? They need two to maintain the status quo, their lead they have now, and if they can win another one in addition to that, well, then they pad their lead, right? So then when they go into the next by-election uh, afterwards, where there will be the seat that was vacated by the Bloc Québécois candidate, with the Liberals may not have a chance to win in that particular case. And there will be uh, the seat that will be freed up by Alexandre Boulris when he will vacate that to run in provincial politics, which is currently an NDP seat, which probably will not remain one, and that's the potential for a pickup there. And then Cathay Wagantall's seat out west, which will probably remain in conservative hands, right? So in that by-election, series of by-elections, there's a chance that Liberals, uh, there are three seats that the Liberals do not hold. So if they flip even one, it becomes a good night for them there. So in terms of managing the news stories, that might be what's going on, and also managing to always ensure that you have your majority. Pardon me. Oh, sorry. I was not able to put, well, technically it would have been the sneeze button in this instance before I did that. So sorry for anybody whose ears I just I just blew out. Sorry there. Um, all right, kids and cubs. So there's that a bit of strategy as well. Another reason to think that the Liberals might have an opportunity to sweep this is that, according to public opinion polling that Eric Grenier is looking at, and this is from Liaison that came out recently, Pierre Poilievre's unfavorables in the province of Quebec specifically is 69%. His unfavorables in British Columbia are 61%, and his unfavorables in Ontario are 52%. Mark Carney in Quebec specifically is 76 favorable. Pierre is 69 favorable. Unfavorable. That's like a 145-point spread. So it might be less of a three-race fight, the three-party fight. It's probably going to be more of a fight between the Liberal and the Bloc candidate this time around. There's also the part, if you add to it, that Richard Martel, how did he gain that seat and how did he maintain it? How did he win that seat in the by-election? How did he maintain it for three? Well, it seems that he was a bit of a star candidate at the time because he was the coach of the Chicoutimi Saguenay, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League team in the region at the time, and noted to be a relatively good constituency MP. So there's a part of that that would indicate that it was maybe more of a Martel seat than a conservative seat specifically. So when you add Martel seat more than conservative seat, and then you add Pierre's unfavorables of 69% in Quebec versus Carney's favorables of 76 in Quebec, it might not be a three-party race at all. And again, that the Bloc candidate, when they were last holding the seat, were able to hold it for three elections in a row. There is probably some good historical memory, at least in the writing, of having a Bloc representative. So that's what we will be looking at in there. In that writing, as well, helping the Liberals, it seems that the candidate that they have chosen, pardon me, I need to blow my nose at some point. I don't have anything here to do it with. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. We have to go off camera for a second here. But the candidate the Liberals chose, it would appear, is someone who is very involved in the agricultural industry, particularly the dairy farm industry. It would seem that not only is he a dairy farmer, but also the head of the Quebec Dairy Association. Yeah. So when you talk about going to get yourself a star candidate, and that probably is going to send a signal to the United States on trade that if you're going to net yourself the head of the Quebec Dairy Association to be your candidate and hopefully have him win and bring him into your government, you're probably not on the verge of putting supply management up for negotiation. So there you go. So again, some strategy. Here you go. Let's see what do we have here. His name is Daniel Gobet. Respected agricultural leader, will be the Liberal candidate for Chicoutimi-Lafière in the upcoming federal by-election. Quote, Daniel has deep roots in Chicoutimi-Lafière and a proven track record of standing up for farmers and communities across the region, said Sachet Mehra, president of the Liberal Party of Canada. He is ready to work with Mark Carney's new Liberal team to deliver serious solutions we need to protect our economy, bring down costs, and build a stronger future for Chicoutimi-Lafière, for Quebecers, and for all Canadians. A dairy farmer with a bachelor's degree in agronomy, Daniel has spent nearly 2 decades standing up for farmers and communities in the region and throughout the province. He most recently served as chair of the Producteurs des Laitiers du Québec. Okay, maybe not president, but chair of the producers, as well as les producteurs de lait du Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. Daniel owns the Ferme du Fjard in La Baie, a family farm originally purchased by his grandfather, where 3 generations now work together. So he was the chair of the Quebec milk producers, as well as the milk producers of the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region. Quote, I've dedicated my career to building a more prosperous economy in our communities, and I understand the priorities and the potential of our region, said Daniel Gobet. Chicoutimi-Lafière needs a strong voice to fight for your priorities, someone who can take action with Mark Carney's new Liberal team to invest in our region, support families, and make life more affordable, and give our workers and small businesses more opportunities to succeed. That's why I'm running to be your next member of parliament at this decisive moment. So there you go. It says also in his bio here that Daniel plays an active role in the region's minor hockey community, reflecting his longstanding commitment to local families and community life. So the Liberals got themselves a star candidate. So it seems that they're throwing everything at winning that one as well. And then in Beaches East York, and this will lead us to our next subject. It seems here that the person running for the Liberals will be the person who is Nathaniel Erskine Smith's constituency association assistant. So again, somebody that comes from the party, and that the party will probably put a lot of resources behind. Now, according to Eric Grenier, as I mentioned, in Chicoutimi Le Fjard, it says that his polling is indicating that the Liberals have a +3 lead there. Sorry, not +5, but +3. In North Vancouver Capilano, a +30 lead, and in Beaches East York, a +42 lead. So according to Eric Grenier, if these by-elections had happened yesterday, the Liberals would have swept them. Now, the wrinkle in the fabric in Beaches East York is that the NDP is trying very, very, very hard to recruit Mike Layton. And if that name sounds familiar to you, yes, Mike Layton, the son of Jack Layton. According to the Toronto Star, This is about 6 days ago. Mike Layton, a former Toronto City Councillor and son of the late New Democratic Party leader Jack Layton, is considering a run for the NDP in the upcoming Beaches East York federal by-election, the Star has learned. Layton would be a big catch for Avi Lewis and the New Democrats, who have been shut out of Toronto by the Liberals since 2015 and currently hold no seats in the House of Commons from east of Winnipeg. According to two sources granted anonymity to speak freely, Layton is exploring entering the race to succeed Nate Erskine-Smith, the Liberal MP who resigned earlier this month. No final decision has been shared by Layton, the sources said. He did not respond to a request for comment Wednesday. Layton, 45, was a progressive on city council from 2010 to 2022, where he advocated for strong climate strategy and more bike lanes. After John Tory's resignation as mayor in 2023, Layton was widely considered among the strongest left-wing contenders to replace Tory, but decided against running to spend more time with his wife and young children. Layton has since worked as a York University lead on sustainability and in executive role at Second Harvest, Canada's largest food rescue charity. But he never shut the door on a return to politics, the sources said. If Layton decides to make the jump to federal politics and secures the NDP's nomination, he would face Liberal candidate Tanvir Shanawaz, a longtime staffer for Erskine-Smith, who won the nomination in a crowded field. The NDP, which has just 5 seats in Parliament, has only won in Beaches East York twice since the riding was created in 1988, most recently in 2011 when the NDP took the Liberal stronghold in Jack Layton's Orange Wave. The NDP candidate received just 6.9% of the vote in last year's election, down from 22.5% in 2021. Prime Minister Mark Carney has not yet called that by-election and has until January to do so by law. 6 other by-elections are soon expected, including the longtime Montreal area NDP riding of Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Lewis, who does not have a seat in Parliament, has ruled out running in any of those ridings. So there you go. Looking at getting Mike Layton. And there probably would be some concern that in a federal by-election where a particular issue in the city of Toronto, the status of the Billy Bishop Airport or the Toronto Island Airport, well, that not being resolved to the satisfaction of the residents of Toronto could have an impact on how people would vote. And if the NDP were to recruit Mike Layton, somebody who's been a city councillor for 12 years and was expected to run for mayor and probably would have had a great shot for it, and that people seemed to like, and people liked Jack, and they remember Jack, and that riding went NDP in the Orange Wave election where Jack was a superstar, that if there's one person that could probably make it such that this was not a guaranteed win for the Liberals, it would be the NDP running Mike Layton. And handing Mike Layton an issue like the Billy Bishop Airport and allowing him to use it as a baseball bat over which he could bash the Liberals over the head repeatedly and mercilessly during a by-election campaign might not be a good idea. So therefore, even though in March, Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced a plan to expand the Island Airport, which would have allowed not the Jets, the Winnipeg Jets, but would have allowed the Jets that fly in the air to use it and increase its capacity. And even though the province passed a bill to expropriate city lands in order to accomplish this, the federal government had a role to play. They had, because it's an airport, and therefore it is under federal authority, they would have to approve this project going forward. And I'm guessing that Ontario Premier Doug Ford was rather confident, I think the word would be, that this deal was going to go through, that he would have gotten the authority from the federal government to have the airport expansion. But according to Salma Ibrahim and Kate McKenna, It seems that things may not have gone according to plan. Ontario Transport Minister Pramit Sakaria says the federal government conceded to fringe groups in rejecting a plan to allow jets to land at Toronto's Billy Bishop Airport. Quote, if this is how they're going to treat bigger projects, I don't think you'll get much built, he said at a Tuesday news conference in St. Thomas, Ontario, while promising to move ahead with the plan, which was very weird. A source with knowledge of the discussion told CBC News that in response, Ontario is now rethinking its support for the Alto high-speed rail project. Bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for you. Several hours after that conversation, 11 MPPs from Ontario put out a statement questioning Alto. Quote, in the case of Alto, too many questions remain unanswered. Too many voices have been ignored, the statement said. But you were fine with that until you got a no on the airport. Choices. For the project to proceed, local stakeholders need to see their feedback, quote, reflected in the project's planning, route selection, and delivery, the MPPs said unironically. Put a pin in that, because the feedback of local stakeholders is probably what led to them getting a no on this airport that they say that they're going to continue with anyway, which nobody knows how they're going to do because they do not have federal approval. But okay. Quote, the federal government must ensure that any potential future rail project minimizes impacts on farmland and is supported by the people affected. Yeah. Now try that for the airport. The 11 MPPs are largely from Eastern Ontario ridings and included two cabinet ministers, Minister of Colleges and Universities Nolan Quinn, and the infamous Labour Minister David Piccini, of both the expense scandal and skills development fund scandal. The other MPPs attached to the statements are Steve Clark, also of the Greenbelt scandal and the expense scandal, Dave Smith, Tyler Alsop, Rick Reese, John Jordan, George DeRuse, Laurie Scott, Stéphane Sarrazin, and Billy Deneau. Federal Transport Minister Stephen McKinnon announced the Billy Bishop decision in a social media post on Friday, saying the government will focus exclusively on approved safety enhancements for the downtown airport instead. Federal Transport Minister Stephen McKinnon announced the Billy Bishop decision in a social media post on Friday, and Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that the by-elections would be called on Sunday. Yeah, kind of looks like this was taking something off the table to ensure victory in Beaches, East York. He said, what else did he say here? Federal transfer. Let's see here. Yes, and Minister McKinnon said that the government would focus exclusively on approved safety enhancements for the downtown airport instead. He said Ottawa came to the decision following consultations, citing a public survey in which 87% of respondents opposed the move. A public survey in which 87% of respondents opposed the move. Let's go back to the statement of the Ontario Transportation Minister. For the project to proceed, local stakeholders need to see their feedback, quote, reflected in the project's planning, route selection, and delivery. The federal government must ensure that any potential future rail, but let's say project, minimizes impacts on farmland and is supported by the people affected. 87% of respondents oppose the move. I'm just saying. That belief seems to be a little flexible. But a senior Liberal source said the timing of the decision wasn't a coincidence. The party hopes to hold its seat in the Toronto riding of Beaches, East York in the August 31st by-election announced on Sunday. The source says the decision to make the announcement was based partially on the knowledge that the NDP opposed the expansion and would likely campaign on the issue. But the province was caught off guard by the move, as it contradicts months of talks centered on reciprocal Sorry, let's try that again. But the province was caught off guard as the move as one more time. But the province was caught off guard by the move as it contradicts months of talks centered on reciprocal support for Alto and the Billy Bishop expansion, two sources familiar with the discussions told CBC News. Both projects face some pushback from the affected residents and both require governments to expend some political capital. According to one source familiar with the discussion, Ontario Premier Doug Ford shared his disappointment with the Prime Minister over the weekend, and the province is now re-evaluating its approach to Alto, which is expected to see trains reaching speeds of 300 kilometers an hour, cutting through valuable Ontario farmland, with stops in major cities between Toronto and Quebec City. CBC News is not naming the sources because they were not authorized to speak about the discussions. The news was first reported by the Toronto Star. The Ontario government has previously expressed support for the rail project, with Ford himself suggesting there be an additional stop in Kingston. The two levels of government previously agreed to collaborate on planning and advancement of Alto in partnership agreement. In a statement, a spokesperson for Prime Minister's office defended the high-speed rail plan, calling it, quote, a generational investment that will carry approximately 24 million riders annually by 2055 and up to 43 million by 2085. In May, the province passed legislation to take Toronto's place in the tripartite agreement that governs the airport, taking over city-owned lands on the adjacent waterfront and the Toronto Islands. Sakaria did not explain how he plans to move forward on the Billy Bishop expansion without the federal support still required in the agreement. Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow, who opposes the jet accommodation at the airport, is now calling on the province to return the land. Quote, the provincial government needs the federal government's support to move forward, which they do not currently have, a spokesperson for Chow's office said in a statement to CBC News. They should repeal the bill and return the land to the city. Mm, 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 mm. So, when we're talking about betrayals from the United States on the bridge, but it would appear here that there might have been some betrayal of Doug Ford by Mark Carney, according to Edward Keenan, columnist at the Toronto Star. And a little snippet here that says, the beginning of the end of a beautiful friendship. Doug Ford was reportedly stunned and disappointed when Mark Carney killed his island airport expansion plans. The two men spoke privately over the weekend, a source said, speculating that Carney's by-election call in Beaches, East York, influenced the timing of the decision, as the NDP was set to make the airport a major campaign issue. One insider said the decision rescinded an earlier handshake deal between Ford and Carney. A handshake deal. Ah. Toronto's business community apparently is disappointed by the news of Billy Bishop. City Hall, whereas we have Olivia Chow, has put forward a formal motion demanding that the land be returned. Wow. And some columnists are stating that it's time to end the airport dog fight. So, when we're talking about potential handshake agreement, according to Robert Benzie, Ryan Tumulty, and Mark Ramsey, they are the Queen's Park Bureau, Ottawa Bureau, and Queen's Park Bureau Chief, and both Tumulty and Ramsey are from the Ottawa Bureau of the Toronto Star. Premier Doug Ford told Prime Minister Mark Carney how disappointed he was that Ottawa is abandoning the Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport expansion to allow commuter jets, the Star has learned. Carney cancelled the island airport scheme before it could cause his Liberals any political turbulence, including potentially in the August 31 Beaches East York by-election that the Prime Minister called Sunday. Quote, the timing of the by-election call did not seem coincidental, said a source close to Ford, who, like others interviewed for the story, spoke confidentially to discuss internal deliberations and confirmed the Premier and the Prime Minister conversed over the weekend. Carney's office did not dispute that there was a conversation between the two leaders, who chat often. At first reported by the Star on Friday, the federal government clipped the wings of the Premier's version for an expanded Billy Bishop within hours of receiving public survey results showing 87% of 87,000 respondents were opposed to the idea. The move blindsided Queen's Park, Ford and Carney, who have enjoyed warm relations since the Prime Minister succeeded Justin Trudeau in March 2025, had even shaken hands to informally seal the deal at the Premier's Etobicoke home. Quote, it's Billy Bishop for Alto. That was always the understanding, said one insider referring to the federal government's proposed high-speed rail line linking Toronto to Quebec City. The controversial 300-kilometer-an-hour train slashing through farmland in rural Ontario ridings represented by Tory MPPs has always been hard to sell to Ford's caucus. While the Premier expressed his disappointment, he is mindful that Carney, who also called by elections on Sunday for Quebec and British Columbia, has electoral considerations in the waterfront riding of Beaches East York. The Liberals were apparently spooked by a Star report that Mike Layton, a popular former city councillor and son of the late federal New Democratic Party leader Jack Layton, was considering a run for the NDP in a seat the Grits are desperate to hold. The governing party is feeling Tanvir Shanawaz, a little-known aide to former MP Nate Erskine-Smith. An NDP source speaking confidentially to recount strategic conversations said the party was planning to make Billy Bishop a top issue during the by-election. Even now, the New Democrats intend to emphasize the airport because it's not clear the Liberals have completely ruled out the plan, added the source, describing it as a mere, quote, pause. Local Liberal MPs, who represent 23 of the Toronto's 24 ridings, were getting an earful on Billy Bishop long before the government survey came out. MP Chi Nguyen from Spadina Harbourfront chalked up the government's decision to the overwhelming response from tens of thousands of Torontonians, which she said sent a clear signal. Quote, it was very clear that the residents didn't feel that a 10 million passenger, 900-meter runway expansion could be done in a way that it wouldn't jeopardize the things that people really value on the waterfront, said Nguyen, adding it just didn't make any sense with housing plans and other federal investments in the area. Quote, no one could provide a good rationale, and the work hadn't been done yet to prove that this would actually be possible and viable. Acknowledging Toronto Liberal MPs received, quote, a lot of flack for not coming out more strongly, more quickly in opposition to Ford's idea, Nguyen said the caucus wanted to let the process unfold while pushing back internally for the government to accept Torontonians' feedback. MP Danielle Martin of University Rosedale said after Ford usurped the City of Toronto's place in the tripartite agreement governing Billy Bishop, local members wanted to ensure their constituents were heard. Quote, all of us as Toronto MPs felt the weight and the importance of making sure that those concerns were transmitted, said Martin, who was elected in an April by-election. I have been hearing from the outset during my by-election and throughout the summer from my own constituents about their long list of deep concerns, and I think those concerns were heard. One Liberal MP who spoke confidentially, I'm having trouble with that word today. One Liberal MP who spoke confidentially to speak freely. Okay. One Liberal MP who spoke confidentially to speak freely said a smaller Billy Bishop revamp in the future could be possible if it complements plans to expand Pearson International Airport and the Altel high-speed rail project. Another Liberal MP said the province had made, quote, a ham-fisted effort to push the project through without a business case that was hard to justify. Even business Liberals were skittish. That's a quote, by the way. A third Liberal source, who was not authorized to speak publicly, said the Carney government timed its retreat from the expansion to avoid the issue looming over Beach's East York by-election. However, they tied the actual decision to the widespread opposition in the city. But a senior government official insisted the by-election wasn't a factor. Rather, they said it was the overwhelming opposition in the survey results, which, quote, couldn't be clearer. So 87% of 87,000 people who took the time to oppose. So again, for everyone who takes the time to oppose and does something, writing counts for X number of citizens. So they knew that this was not popular whatsoever. You can say, hey, the public didn't want it, so we're listening to the public. You can say, hey, there's a by-election coming and we don't want to hand somebody a baseball bat. You can make the decision look virtuous. But these were things that were clearly happening. Now, I'm not sure whether it is a smart idea to be rethinking the Alto project because, number one, as we're seeing in the article here, it was always Billy Bishop for Alto. If you're making it sound that you support my project, I support yours, it doesn't look like the support is necessarily based on merit. In here, it seems that it was more like, this. I'm going to have to spend some political capital on this, so you're going to have to spend some political capital on that. Okay. I'm not particularly, don't particularly think that that's the best way forward with these types of projects. But hey, we'll see what becomes of that. It's probably going to be a situation once again where, just as was the case in British Columbia, that the Prime Minister is going to have to come to the table with a couple of extra goodies to make to soothe over Dougie's hurt fifis again. besides. But on the other hand, considering how Doug Ford is in the polls at the moment, um, he doesn't have much political capital left to lose anyway. So maybe the prime minister doesn't need him anymore, right? If Alto goes through and Doug Ford takes a hit, how much more of a hit can Doug Ford take? Nobody likes him at the moment. um, in that article, we heard about the Kingston stop, which creates an interesting situation because you had people advocating for extra stops to be put on this. Now, as the provincial government, a couple weeks after that, or a couple of days after that, says, well, now maybe we need to reconsider this. But according to CBC News, the CEO of the Crown Corporation planning a high-speed. Sorry, let's try that again. The CEO of the Crown Corporation planning a high-speed. One more time. The CEO of the Crown Corporation planning a high-speed rail link between Toronto and Quebec City says Kingston, Ontario will probably get a stop because the public is asking for it. Quote, it's doable. The ridership is very strong because it's a large community. It seems to be making a lot of sense, Martin Imblot told CBC Radio's Ottawa Morning on Wednesday. He said most Alto trains would pass through Kingston, Laval, and Trois-Rivières without stopping, enabling faster express service between larger cities. Transport Minister Steve McKinnon said last month his office is going to take a very, very long, strong, and positive look at the possibility of including Kingston in Canada's first high-speed rail route. McKinnon said Kingston is the fourth busiest via rail station in the country. He said an Alto stop there would be widely used by students at Queen's University. Business-wise, we've looked at the comments we've received, and it's kind of persuasive that a stop in Kingston would make sense, Ablo said on Wednesday. Prime Minister Mark Carney has said he wants to start building the line in 4 years. The proposed Toronto-Quebec City line was announced late last year with planned stops in Trois-Rivières, Laval, Montreal, Ottawa, and Peterborough. Alto plans to release specific route between Montreal and Ottawa for public feedback this fall. Envelope also said there could be changes around Montreal's northwestern Mirabel suburb because of feedback from local farmers. The stretch between Toronto and Ottawa, which would include Kingston, would come next, followed by the final piece to Quebec City. Asked about the possibility of yet another Alto stop in Smith Falls, south of Ottawa, Ambrose said Via Rail remains an option for those smaller communities. We cannot stop in all the communities. It needs to make sense. It needs to be fast. It needs to be economical. While there has been vocal opposition from some people living along the proposed route who are worried about what Alto will mean to their land and communities, the mayors of Kingston and the township of South Frontenac have taken different positions. The city would only support the high-speed rail project if there was a stop in Kingston, Mayor Brian Patterson told CBC on Wednesday. Alto first proposed two routes. One is an essentially straight line between Peterborough and Ottawa. The second dips south to within a 30-minute drive of downtown Kingston. The two mayors met in March to voice their support for a third scenario that would see the track from the Alto rail line run further south along Highway 401 corridor, stopping in Kingston. The 1,000-kilometer rail line would use all-electric trains reaching speeds of 300 kilometers an hour. It's expected to cost between $60 and $90 billion. Patterson said he's encouraged by the progress made toward a Kingston stop and hopes the proposal will continue to develop. Quote, we're not going to take our foot off the gas pedal here because there's still been no confirmation of any final decisions being made, he said. We're going to continue to press and make the case for Kingston. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has called for the government to cancel the project entirely. He said last month it would be smarter to spend the money on cutting taxes, including the GST paid on used cars bought through dealerships. Quote, if this project ever gets built, it will be 15 years from now and will cost every family $8,000 in higher taxes, Poilievre said. It won't take a single car off the road. It will just take passengers out of airplanes, which was a silly statement. The leader of the Parti Québécois says if elected later this year, his government would pull the province out of Alto because the money would be better spent on local transportation. And, well, the leader of the Parti Québécois seems to have talked himself out of a potential majority government, at least based on the most recent public opinion data. So, looking at this, and June 28th is the latest data that we have here, and we have you need 64 for a majority, and there's 60 for the Parti Québécois on this. And the Parti Québécois was clearly in a majority territory up until about March of this year. And like I said, with its various plans and schemes, has talked itself out of it. This one probably won't help them very much. So that's the situation with Alto in terms of one side is talking about expanding it, and one side is now talking about rethinking their support. On the municipal side of all of this, um, we have um, what's going on with um, the city hall and the province itself. And this is according to uh, Aidan Charmandy of the Trillium.ca. Says here the Ford government is staying the course on the Billy Bishop Airport expansion plans after Ottawa grounded the Premier's dream of bringing jets to the Toronto Island Airport. On Tuesday, Provincial Transportation Minister Prabmeet Sakaria said the province won't repeal Bill 110, the Building Billy Bishop Act, which gave it the power to expropriate 8 parcels of airport-related land owned by the City of Toronto, removing it from the tripartite agreement that governs the airport. Quote, "We have no intention to repeal," Sakaria said at an unrelated press conference in London, Ontario on Tuesday morning. Quote, "We fully support the modernization of this plan that is going to be put forward by the Toronto Port Authority." Sakaria's comments comes just days after Federal Transportation Minister Steve McKinnon said he wouldn't approve the airport expansion following a public consultation that found thousands of people vehemently opposed to the project. Further, it comes as Toronto City Council gets set to debate a motion from Mayor Olivia Chow demanding the province return the land. Sakaria also criticized the Carney's government's move, calling it unambitious and a bad omen for getting large infrastructure projects built. Sakaria said the consultations, which McKinnon and the other Toronto area politicians said was the deciding factor, shouldn't carry much weight. Quote, "We've seen the federal government here listen to a small fringe group in Toronto," he said. Instead, Sakaria referenced conversations he said the provincial government had with various groups across the province. Quote, "We heard from communities in the north, hospital CEOs, that this airport would create greater connectivity for those individuals. We heard from mayors in Eastern Ontario about how this project will support their transportation needs," he said. The expropriated land includes all of Little Norway Park, narrow strips of land flanking the airport ferry terminal, a section of Bathurst Street south of the Gardiner Expressway, Erin Cay, and the Toronto Islands. However, when the bill was introduced, Sakaria's spokesperson said the province would work with the city to narrow down the actual land it would take. On Tuesday, Chow told Toronto Today she's in the process of booking meetings with Sakaria to figure out the path forward, adding, "But they know where I stand." She said the city needs clarity on what's going to happen with the expropriated land because it's about to spend money to shore up Hanlon's Point Beach, which lies just to the west of the airport, against erosion. Okay. So there you have it. We also have Liam Casey of the Canadian Press reporting here that Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow wants the city's islands lands back. The mayor said Monday the Ontario government should return lands it recently expropriated through new legislation, which was part of a push from Premier Doug Ford to expand the Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport to allow jets to land and take off from it. Her demands came after Federal Transportation Minister Stephen McKinnon rejected Ford's island export expansion plan last week after receiving feedback through a public consultation. Quote, "Return our waterfront to us," Chow said Monday on social media. The mayor said she and Councillor Osma Malik filed an urgent motion to City Council demanding land in and around the island back. The motion is considered urgent because it is the last time City Council will sit this term before the provincial legislature resumes in the fall, the government said. The document said. Chow wants the province to repeal Bill 110, which became law in early June. That law gave the province the ability to take over the entirety of the Toronto Islands though the province said it would only take what's necessary despite the language in the legislation. The province also booted the city from a long-standing tripartite agreement that governs Billy Bishop Airport. Ontario took over the city's spot in that agreement, joining the federal government and the Toronto Port Authority at arm's length federal agency. Ford called his vision of an expanded airport Ford called his vision of an expanded airport a crown jewel, and his government has been saying an expanded airport would add billions to the economy every year. Port Authority CEO R.J. Steenstra, who was bullish on the expansion, said at a committee hearing on the bill that the airport expansion would cost between $4 and $5 billion over 25 years and would be paid for by passengers and airlines. Steenstra said that said at that hearing that he had shared preliminary plans with the federal and provincial governments, but not the city, which he said was due to scheduling issues. The airport's passenger terminal is owned by Newport Aviation, which is controlled by JP Morgan Asset Management, a US based firm. Chow said she has still not seen those plans. We have been demanding to see the plans despite the Toronto Port Authority actively hiding them, Chow said in her post Monday. We have researched the impacts on housing, the environment, congestion, and more. We have discovered who would benefit, like the Wall Street bankers at JP Morgan. Council has formally opposed the unacceptable overreach, and we still do. On Friday, McKinnon said the federal government is focused on safety upgrades currently taking place at the airport at this stage. Quote, we will not pursue any plans that infringe on the treasured public spaces like Little Norway Park or Hanlon's Point Beach, result in elevated noise, have significant environment impacts, or hinder Toronto's ability to build much needed housing, he said in a statement. At the time, Transportation Minister Pramit Sakaria said the province will continue to push for an expanded airport. A statement his office said still stands Monday. Quote, as this work continues, we look forward to seeing and anticipate a plan that ensures the project protects public spaces, including the Toronto Islands, addresses potential noise and environmental impacts, expands and improves Little Norway Park, supports new housing opportunities in the area, and delivers lasting benefits for local communities, the minister said Friday. Provincial opposition parties cheered the federal government's decision and urged for it to back down. Quote, right now, Bill 10 is still law, said NDP leader Merritt Stiles. Doug Ford has given himself the power to do whatever he wants with Little Norway Park and the Toronto Islands. It's time to end this land grab, kill Bill 110, and return Toronto Island and Little Norway Park back to Toronto. She is also quoted as saying here, well, the Minister of Transportation is delusional if he thinks this project can continue to move forward without the federal government's support. Boom. Provincial Liberal legislator Adil Shanji called Bill 110 a terrible deal. Quote, that legislation should be torn up, he said. This is yet another in a series of examples in which Doug Ford makes wild promises for pipe dreams and pet projects without ever doing his homework. Ouch. Government of Ontario has not responded to questions about its allegedly still existent future expansion plans or intention to return the land to the city. There you go. Before we go, since we have a little time, we have a couple of updates that we wanted to bring to you. We talked about, updates or additional information, I should say, that we wanted to bring to you. We talked about the free trade deals with the UAE and with Ecuador, and there was some coverage that has some details that might be interesting to you about all of them. So one was in the Globe and Mail with regard to the free trade deal with the United Arab Emirates, and this is from Sammy Cogan of the Canadian Press, and says the United Arab Emirates expects to announce investments in Canada's energy sector very soon, its foreign trade minister said Friday at a signing ceremony marking the conclusion of negotiations on a free trade deal between the two countries. Canada's Minister of International Trade Maninder Sidhu and UAE Minister of Foreign Trade Tani bin Ahmed Al Zayudi met at Toronto's Four Seasons Hotel to announce that they have reached a comprehensive economic partnership agreement after several rounds of accelerated talks. Leaders from the two countries agreed to negotiate a CEPA when Prime Minister Mark Carney visited Abu Dhabi in November last year. The CEPA is intended to cut tariffs, remove trade barriers, and expand market access to the UAE for Canadian exporters. The agreement still has to go through legal review and a final signing and ratification before it comes into force. Canada's expanding relationship with the UAE is an early litmus test for Mr. Carney's attempts to attract more foreign investment and to expand trade relationships abroad to reduce reliance on the United States. In November, Mr. Carney secured a pledge from the UAE to invest $70 billion in Canada. That has yet to happen as officials from the Gulf state look for shovel-ready projects, but many of Canada's proposed initiatives have not yet advanced that far, and Ottawa is trying to speed up the timelines to approve infrastructure and energy projects. In addition, as we reported yesterday, the UAE has taken up all the space it could, having increased its investment in Canada by 21% last year alone. Quote, our investment agreement gives investors the certainty they need to write those checks, Mr. Sidhu said. The war in Iran, which has spilled out into the wider Gulf region, delayed the start of Canada's free trade talks with the UAE, but Mr. Sidhu and Dr. Al Zayudi each emphasized how fast the negotiations have progressed since then, taking 47 days. to complete. So that is interesting there. And in addition, with uh, Ecuador, it seems that in this case, it is a very expansive free trade deal that covers greater than 99% of export tariffs. So it's kind of hard to get more comprehensive than that. In fact, I believe that the precise number, if you want it, is 99.6%. So that is a lot. Hopefully we will be able to make good on those deals, and that the business connections will uh, follow, such that the the diversification can happen, because the legal architecture is done, but now we have to build those relations. Um, According to investing.com, Ecuador and Canada signed a free trade agreement, according to Ecuador's government, that will allow 99.6% of Ecuador's exportable goods to enter Canada without tariffs once it becomes effective. The agreement covers multiple areas, including trade in goods and services, investment, e-commerce, labor, environmental issues, indigenous peoples, and dispute resolution. More than 600 Ecuadorian products will gain tariff-free access to the Canadian market. These products includes bananas, cocoa, shrimp, tropical fruits, and vegetables. The deal provides preferential access to several sectors, including flowers, tuna preparations, textiles, and cosmetics. The agreement excludes or protects 227 sensitive agricultural products, including rice, corn, milk, meat, and sugar. So that's a little additional information on those trade deals here. And another little update is, if you have been trying to communicate with the leader of the Bloc Québécois on his X account, you may have been having some difficulty, according to Rafi Boudjikanian, who reports that the Bloc Québécois leader says that social media platform X has restored his account 2 weeks after it was hacked and started promoting Bitcoin, which is almost as long as it took for the party to publicly admit something was wrong. Quote, "I'm evidently and absolutely not a promoter of cryptocurrency, which is a subversion of the rule of law," Blanchet wrote in a post on his own account shortly before 7:30 a.m. Friday. Those were some of the few words from Blanchet that his 54,400 followers on X have seen since his account was hacked on July 11th. At the time, someone posted under his name linking to a cryptocurrency trader with the username at Coach Romy Rome, and said he was thrilled to have received a second payment of $31,000. That post was deleted, but earlier this week, an identical one reappeared on Blanchet's account, followed by another post insisting that the messages are real, and a retweet that said, "Bitcoin and crypto changed my life." On Wednesday, 11 days after the initial hack, the party publicly admitted in its own post on X, warning users, quote, "not to click on any of the publications linked to cryptocurrency and any other link until they hear otherwise from the Bloc Québécois." The Bloc said it did not sound any alarms after the initial hack because X deleted the first suspicious post promptly, and Blanchet still had control of his account until he was locked out of it this week. Quote, "As soon as there was a first hack of Mr. Blanchet's account, we advised the administration of the House of Commons and IT service in order to ensure Mr. Blanchet's device safety," party spokesperson Joanie Riopelle said in a statement to CBC News. Riopelle said the party has been unable to determine exactly how Blanchet's account was hacked, and said it had followed all the steps required by X to regain access. "Unfortunately, X's collaboration is not optimal," Riopelle wrote before the remaining suspicious posts were deleted Thursday evening. The account was restored early Friday morning. That restoration occurred sometime after CBC News reached out to X for comment, and also after several media outlets wrote about the hack. "We will follow the situation closely in order to Mr. Blanchet's account is secured correctly," Riopelle wrote. All Canadian federal party leaders regularly post on X, and with Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Prime Minister Mark Carney leading the pack in terms of followers, with 1.4 million and 1.4 million and 723,800 respectively. The Greens' Elizabeth May has 281,800 followers on X, while the NDP's Abby Lewis has 36,600. All right, let's see. Do we have time for another little update for you? Yes, we do. Let's do this one here. We talked to you a couple days ago about Ontario Progressive Conservative MPP Chris Scott, who is having some legal issues and allegedly had assaulted someone with a high chair. According to Trillium.ca's Michael Friscolanti, we have more developments on this story. Sioux MPP Chris Scott was caught having a romantic relationship with a staff member just days before he allegedly assaulted his wife with a high chair, sources say, an accusation that raises new questions about his conduct in office and his future in politics. Multiple sources tell Sioux today the workplace romance began shortly after Scott, a former Doug Ford advisor handpicked by the premier to be the local progressive conservative candidate, won a narrow victory in the February 27, 2025 Ontario election. The pair's relationship continued through that summer, sources say, while the rookie MPP served as parliamentary assistant to Stephen Lecce, the Minister of Energy and Mines. By mid-September 2025, Scott's wife, Colleen Van Scott, had grown suspicious enough to confront him, driving 6 hours to South Bend, Indiana, where her husband was attending a 2-day conference with provincial and state legislators from the Great Lakes St. Lawrence region. When she arrived, sources say she found Scott's staff member in his hotel room. Oh, boy. Okay. While Scott would not answer specific questions about his alleged workplace relationship, including what happened when his wife showed up in Indiana, he told Sue today in an email statement that, quote, contested allegations contained in untested court documents from an unreliable source or party should not be presented as established facts. On September 19th, 3 days after the conference wrapped up, the alleged assault took place inside the couple's now former home in Sault Ste. Marie. Scott was arrested on September 21 and charged with assault and assault with a weapon, the weapon being a high chair, according to a sworn statement signed by a police constable. Promptly ejected from Ford's PC Let's try that again. Promptly ejected from Ford's PC caucus, Scott has spent the past 10 months as an independent MPP while his criminal charges, which he 100% denies, inch through the system. None of the allegations have been tested in court, and Scott is presumed innocent until proven guilty. His next hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Despite repeated calls to resign, the 36-year-old has insisted he won't step down. In April, he went so far as to express optimism in the Despite repeated calls to resign, the 36-year-old has insisted he won't step down. In April, he went so far as to express optimism that the assault charges would soon be behind us and he'd be welcomed back in Ford's PC caucus, a return to a sense of normal, he said. But little about Scott's time in office has been normal, and the allegations he was having a secret workplace romance in the months leading up to his arrest sheds more light on why the people of Sault Ste. Marie abruptly lost what they voted for, an MPP in the Ford government. What Scott very hard to keep private, sources say, ended up having huge public consequences for the constituents he was elected to serve. Although there are no rules that specifically forbid an Ontario MPP from having a consensual relationship with a staff member, experts say such behavior raises ethical and legal questions that go beyond the political fallout. More than anything, office relationships are discouraged because they can create a power imbalance, leaving a subordinate feeling pressured to acquiesce to the boss. Scott's alleged workplace conduct could also expose him to questions about preferential treatment, nepotism, and how he spends his public dollars. So, Sue today has confirmed that more than a year later, the woman is still a member of Scott's legislative staff, collecting a taxpayer-funded salary. Sue today has also confirmed there was another alleged altercation between Scott and his wife months after Scott's arrest. Court records show that in February 2026, 5 months after Scott was kicked out of Ford's caucus, Colleen Van Scott was charged with assaulting him at a Toronto address. She was arrested on Valentine's Day and charged with a single count of assault against her estranged husband. Court records further reveal that MPP staff members claim Van Scott was harassing and intimidating her on the same date she was arrested, February 14th. Oh, Valentine's Day, lovely. A month later, on March 17th, the woman went to court to request a Section 810 peace bond, arguing she had reasonable grounds to fear Scott's wife would, quote, cause personal injury or damage to her property. A justice of the peace agreed to sign the bond order requiring Van Scott, quote, to keep the peace and to be of good behavior for up to 12 months. The assault charge against Van Scott has not been tested in court, and she is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Her next hearing is scheduled for July 31st in Toronto. Contacted by Sue today, Van Scott declined to comment. She has since filed for divorce, seeking full custody of the couple's 3 young children. On June 16th, the family court judge issued a temporary order that requires the Sue MPP to pay $2,985 per month in child support and $1,200 in monthly spousal support. The court orders lists Scott's annual salary as $163,275. Sue today emailed Scott a list of questions about his alleged office romance, including whether he disclosed such a relationship to anyone in the Progressive Conservative Party or to the Office of the Integrity Commissioner. We also asked whether he thinks it is appropriate for an MPP to have an intimate relationship with a staff member whose salary is funded by taxpayers. In an emailed response, Scott said, following the advice of my lawyers, I can't speak on a number of these questions right now. Specifically, he did not confirm or deny that he had an intimate relationship with a staff member. Quote, my personal relationships have never violated the integrity rules, Scott wrote, adding certain family and court matters that you are referring to and asking about remain before legal processes, and I will not compromise those proceedings or the privacy of my children by litigating them through the media at this time. He also said he sympathizes with the frustration of Sioux residents who are upset by what's transpired since the election. I can understand why constituents are angry that the riding no longer has a member sitting in the government caucus, Scott wrote. I regret this disruption more than anyone else. My removal exclusively followed allegations that I deny and that remain before the courts. Because those matters are ongoing, it would be inappropriate to comment further on their substance. Asked about his current living arrangements, Scott said he leases a residence in the Sioux, quote, that I pay for out of my own pocket. Like all MPPs whose riding is more than 50 kilometers from Queen's Park, he also has a residence in Toronto funded by tax dollars via the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. Quote, until this matter is resolved, my responsibility is to continue doing the job residents elected me to do, he said. My office continues serving constituents every day, and I remain focused on advocating for the community priorities. I'm sure, as I'm sure you know, whether I am in Sault Ste. Marie or at Queen's Park, my work on behalf of the riding continues. Scott's staff member did not respond to a request for comment sent to her work email address at this time. Sue is not publishing the woman's name. Scott is hardly the first politician to come under scrutiny for an alleged workplace romance. In 2016, Liberal MP Hunter Tutu resigned from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's cabinet after confessing to a consensual but inappropriate relationship with a female staff member. More recently, Toronto Mayor John Tory abruptly stepped down after admitting to, quote, a serious error in judgment, an intimate relation with a much younger staffer. On paper, however, there are no laws that prohibit consensual relationships between a Canadian politician and a staff member. Unlike in most workplaces where manager-subordinate romance must be disclosed to human resources, the political arena is a lot more gray. Quote, there are no consistent rules, said Robert Shepard, a public policy professor at Carleton University who specializes in government ethics. It's a question of morality. As you know, morality rules tend to be very problematic. The article does go on for quite amount of time, but that is the gist, and the important part here is that it would appear that there was more to the assault charges than just the assault. How about that? Well, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring. Word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops everything about us and all about us if you can. And if you include a little blurb of your own about why it is our content resonates with you, that would be super swell. So thank you very much. If you would like to help us out, this QR code right here. If you scan it, it brings you to our YouTube page if you're not already there. And there you can click on our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us with the algorithm when you do. You can also click on our notification bell and click all so that you get all our notifications and know when we have some new content. And if you are watching this not live, but on your phone and on your tablet fewer than 7 days after the live broadcast, if you could be so kind as to swipe left on the comment box and give us some hype points, which helps smaller channels like ourselves gain more viewership, we would be very, very happy for your support. Now, other ways you can support us is by scanning this QR code here, which will bring you to our tip jar. If you like what we do and you feel that our work is valuable and you would like to encourage us to do more or support us in what it is that we are doing, we would definitely love to receive a tip from you, because we are not against shaking it for tips. There you go. A little shoulder action right there. Boom, boom. There you go. So if you scan that, that will bring you to the Emergency Hydration Fund at our Beaver Lodge. That's what we affectionately call it, but it's our tip jar. And it's at our coffee page, coffee-ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. You can make a one-time donation or a recurring donation that you can stop at any time you are not locked in. And just that's just for convenience. If you would like to, if you believe that we are an ongoing endeavor that deserves support, we would be happy for that as well. We get about 95 to 97% of your donation. Sometimes it goes into a mug of hot chocolate for yours truly, or a cup of coffee for Mr. Grizzly. And if there's anything left over, then we have our internet fees and subscription fees and all that other kind of stuff that we need to cover. So thank you so much for all that you do to support us and to keep us going, to keep us healthy, to keep us solvent. It really means the world to us. If you want to support us in other ways, we have stickers, super chats, and memberships on our YouTube page where we get about 70%. And if you are doing the Buy Canadian thing here and not giving any money to USCE Tech Bros, all you need to do is remember our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And there you send us a direct transfer from your bank to ours. No service fees. We get 100% of your donation. Everybody wins. It's a wonderful deal. So thank you for all the ways you support us. And if you are not able to support us financially, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address where you can write to us and support us in word by giving us some compliments or some constructive critique, guest suggestions for the interview project, your questions on politics or on how the show is run, and of course, your good news to help us with the doom scrolling. If you're looking for us on our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home, and also our Instagram run by Kit Uncover, who does our clips. We have our Beaver Bites Substack. We have the unofficial Damn Fam Discord where you can keep the conversation with the members of the best Damn Fam in all of podcasting. And we have, of course, our coffee page as referred to previously. So lots of places where you can keep the conversation with us going. And right down here in our comments section, if you happen to be watching on YouTube, is the best way to get our attention if you want to leave a comment. And right there, we read everything that you write us, even though we are not able to answer everyone. And we thank you for all of your contributions, because whether they be financial or in word, they all go back to make this show better for you. And we thank you for all the things that you do to help us make that happen. Because democracy is something that you do, kits and cubs, we are down to our petitions. 2 days left on this one, which is rcommons.ca petition E7395, which calls upon the House of Commons to pass some legislation that would make it such that we no longer fund Stornoway as an official residence for the leader of the opposition. And right there, boom, put in the chat for you so you can click on that. Remember, with an rcommons.ca petition, you need to sign it, and then you get an email that asks you to verify your signature. And once you do that, it is considered signed. And we are now at 28,112 signatures on that one, with a little more than a day to go. Closes July 30th at 4:59 p.m. We also have the change.org petition that was started by the Blue Beach Band in Saskatchewan to encourage CBC Sportsnet, CBC and Sportsnet to come to some type of agreement to keep some hockey for free at a regular time, so that we can maintain the long-standing Hockey Night in Canada tradition. And barring that, of course, maybe the CBC getting creative by using PWHL games or OHL games, Quebec Major League games, WHL games, University League games, something like that, to ensure that we still have a regular rendezvous for hockey to keep that national tradition together. So there you go. We have by-elections coming up in North Vancouver Capilano, in Beaches East York, and of course Chicoutimi-Lafière. So find out about your candidates. Not all of them are nominated yet, so for some parties it might be a little trickier to find out, but find out about all your candidates, at least those who are there. If you believe in them and you like their platforms, sign up to help with them. Some phone banking, some door knocking, some envelope stuff, postcard sending, all of that kind of stuff. Very, very important. Or call Elections Canada, because they will need people at the polling stations for advanced polling and a day of the by-election polling. And it's a great thing that everybody should do at least once in their lives, to participate in the democratic process on the other side of the fence and help your fellow citizens to vote. So lots of opportunities, and those are paid jobs as well, right? So it's temporary, short-term work, but they are paid jobs, so it can add a little bit to the coffers while doing something that makes you feel good, and that's worthwhile. So there you go. Just saying, just saying, it's a great thing. I mean, how often do you get paid to do something that is and worthwhile and fulfilling? Yeah, and that it makes you feel good about the work that you've done. That's a great combination to have. There you go. Yes, we have all of these, and of course, kids and cubs. There's a new thing apparently that's been going on for a while, but I apparently just tuned into. It seems that in the province of New Brunswick, there is currently a race for the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of New Brunswick after Blaine Higgs has decided to step down some time ago, according to Jacques Poitras of CBC News. It seems there that, however, the race might be getting a little testy here. Progressive Conservatives in New Brunswick are facing an increasingly fractious leadership race this summer that threatens their ability to unite in time for the next provincial election. Some party members are using social media to attack candidate Daniel Alain, a former PC cabinet minister, for what they call a betrayal of party unity in 2023. Alain, meanwhile, is continuing to question the integrity of his opponent, rookie MLA Don Monahan, over what Alain calls a vote-buying scheme, even after the party and Elections New Brunswick said it had broken no rules. The tensions are playing out largely online, but they came briefly into view in a pair of debates last week. Quote, "This party doesn't need a token leader, it needs a real leader," Alain said in St. John, a nod to Monahan offering $50 worth of tokens at his campground business to campers who paid $50 to register to vote in the race. Yeah, that seems a little shady. In Saint Leonard, Monahan accused Alain of using a ministerial consultation tour in 2021 to get ready to become the next premier of the province. That echoed the belief among some PC members that Alain was plotting to replace Blaine Higgs when he was part of Caucus Revolt in 2023. Alain says the online rhetoric has gone too far. Quote, "I think New Brunswickers expect that politicians and politics in general be about ideas, not about personal insults, and that has to stop." Jason Purdy, a party member who has been posting prolifically about Alain on social media, referred to him as, quote, "a liberal light urban French activist" in a recent Facebook post. Quote, "I've never personally attacked anybody," Purdy told CBC News. "I'm asking them to be accountable for the decisions that they're making as an elected official." He defended his posts, saying they gave party members a chance to reflect on Alain and 5 other PC MLAs who supported a liberal motion in June 2023 about a Higgs government policy on pronouns and gender identity in schools. The Butthurt Express. Quote, "That's what split the party in two," said Purdy, who lives in Noonan, just east of Fredericton. "That's what made the divide, and as members, we've never had the opportunity to have that discussion. It's not Dawn that's creating the division. It's not me creating the division. It's pent-up anger over 3 years, and now it's just coming to the forefront." In Purdy's view, there are two factions in the party: rural Anglophone conservatives who are further to the right and urban red conservatives who are in the center. He said Alain's 2023 vote makes it impossible for him to win over those on the right, but Monahan can win over both. Several PC MLAs who supported Higgs in that 2023 policy vote are supporting Alain, however. Political scientist Jamie Gillies of St. Thomas University says the divisions apparent in this leadership race are common in conservative parties across Canada as moderates and populists confront each other. Quote, it is leading to these more animosity-filled leadership contests. Even Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's party is this coalition that is this, sorry. This quote does not make sense as written. Let me try this, figure out what they're trying to say here. It is leading to these more animosity-filled leadership contests. Even Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's party is a coalition that is fractious, and they have to find ways to bring themselves together. Monahan said there's little he can do to stop the attacks on Alain. The other candidate has a longer political history than myself, he said. People know him and perhaps know more of his past, and perhaps they're voicing more of their opinions and their commentary about it. I don't condone it, but I don't control the entire population of New Brunswick as well. He said he did ask one supporter to stop leveling online attacks, and in the end, they didn't want to listen anyway. Meanwhile, Alain has kept up his criticism of Monahan's tokens for votes system. Visitors to a July 17 to 18 country music festival at Monahan's Sussex campground were offered $50 in tokens to use at the campground, plus a car pass worth $35 for the adjacent drive-in movie theater if they registered to vote in the leadership race. Corporate donations are banned in New Brunswick, but Monahan said the tokens were paid for by his campaign, not his campground company. Elections New Brunswick and the PC party said the system broke no rules, which Alain said he disagreed with. The situation is unacceptable, Alain said in a social media post on Friday. I will never buy someone's vote. He invited anyone who agreed with him to register and vote for him. Alain's campaign is leaning heavily on the argument that he can rebuild the party in francophone areas that were unwilling to support former Premier Blaine Higgs because of his perceived disinterest in their language rights. Quote, every riding we give up is a riding we hand to Susan Holt for free, Alain said in St. John. He said in St. Leonard that, quote, a riding you've never worked is a riding you've already lost. Despite the tensions, Monahan said in St. John that when the race is over, there will not be two different teams, there'll be one progressive conservative team. But Purdy said he won't be able to support the party if Alain is chosen leader, and said some more right-leaning members may even start a new party if that happens. Fight, 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 fight. Gillies said whoever becomes leader after party members vote in October will have their work cut out for them. Quote, they still have those divisions that clearly have not been dealt with, he said. How they negotiate the schism between the traditional moderate PC base, some of whom may be backing Alain, and this more upstart populist group who have been activated by Blaine Higgs and who may be backing Monahan, is something the party has to sort out before the next election. Oh boy, some tensions there in the PC leadership election, PCNB. However, that date of the vote is supposed to be October 17th, and you can register to vote in the 2026 PCNB leadership election because this is the democracy, something that you do section. And you can do so via this link here that I'm going to include in the chat. There you go, kids and cubs. The link is newbrunswick.pc.ca/reg_2_vote_inscrivez_vous_pour_voter. So that might be hard to note as from a written if you're saying it here. But yes, so that's the address to vote, and I don't know if there's anything else. It's just a link that says register to vote in the PC NB leadership election, and it doesn't give any information about the race itself here. So I'm just going to say here, the leadership convention is going to take place October 17th, 2026. The last day to join the party to vote is August 14th, 2026. And the last day for ballot qualification deadline for approved candidates is July 31st. So that is coming up soon. Election rules were announced in May 2025 to qualify on the ballot. Candidates needed to collect 500 endorsements from party members with regional considerations. They also need to donate at least $35,000 to the party and abide by a spending limit of $250,000. Voting will be conducted by mail using a ranked choice voting system. And the declared candidates that we have, Danielle Alain and Don Monahan so far. Chris Austin and Glenn Savoy had been courted but declined. So there you go. So more to follow there. But yes, make sure that you get your membership if you are in New Brunswick by August 14th so that you can choose the better of these two candidates to have the best possible option on the ballot when the election comes, regardless of what party you intend to vote for once you get to the federal election. Remember, kids and cubs, at the party level, that's where the real action is at. So that's where you really need to vote if you want good quality candidates. All right. That's what I have for you there. Words of wisdom. If you happen to be having a nice day where you are, do a little something today to get the blood pumping. Go for a nice walk, have a bike ride, that type of stuff. Go work in the garden. Just a little bit of some physical activity here. If there's an opportunity to play a sport, some tennis, maybe some beach volleyball, that type of stuff. Take a chance to do that. But get out and get moving. Motion is lotion. So a little action today is my words of wisdom. There you go. All right. It could be a tough world out there, kids and cubs. Please be kind to and gentle with yourself. We're going to do some audience participation and come back with some Canadians who make us proud. So on one, two, three, can I please have you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on one, two, and three. Oh, yeah, that's the good stuff. And here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, a great day for Canada at the Commonwealth Games yesterday. So celebrating a little bit of Canadians who make us proud, because why not? And this comes to us courtesy of Jesse Campagato of CBC Sports. After capturing a dozen medals the day before at the Commonwealth Games, Canada found another gear by piling up 14, including 6 gold yesterday in Scotland. Gymnast Felix Dolce led the charge with 2 more golds and a bronze, while hammer thrower Cameron Rogers, swimmer Kylie Mass, and weightlifters Maud Charon and Charlotte Simoneau also topped the podium. Dolce finished his games with 4 gold and 6 total medals after winning the men's vault and horizontal bar events yesterday and adding a bronze in the parallel bars. He previously won gold in the rings and teams event and took silver in the all-around. 16-year-old Leah Monica Fontaine won bronze in the women's balance beam for her 4th medal, and William Aymar added a bronze in the men's horizontal bars. Canada's gymnast finished with a games-high 16 medals, including 7 gold. Rogers, the reigning Olympic and world champion in the world's hammer throw, broke her own games record with a toss of 74.91 meters to easily win her 2nd straight Commonwealth gold. Para long jumper Noah Vuksix claimed the silver in the men's T20 category for Canada's only other track and field medal of the day. Led by Mass's gold in the women's 50-meter backstroke, the 11th career Commonwealth medal for the 5-time Olympic medalist and 3-time world champion, Canada swimmers reached the podium 5 times today. 5 times yesterday, 18-year-old Oliver Dawson took silver in the men's 200-meter breaststroke in 2:08:39, breaking a Canadian record that had stood since the year he was born. And Lauren Wigginton, the men's 400-meter individual medley, Sophie Angus, women's 50-meter breaststroke, and para-athlete Nicolas Guy Turbide, men's 50-meter freestyle S13, each picked up a bronze. On the downside, gold medal contender Josh Leando finished 4th in the men's 100-meter freestyle and was also 4th in the mixed 4x100 medley relay with Mass, Dawson, and Ella Jansen after Scotland passed them on the final leg. Charon, an Olympic champion in 2021 and silver medalist in 2024, lifted a Commonwealth Games record of 232 kilograms to win her 3rd consecutive title in the women's 63-kilogram division. Simoneau followed suit in the women's 69-kilogram class, putting up a Games record 240 total kilos to win her 1st Commonwealth title. With its huge medal haul over the last 2 days, Canada has leapfrogged England for 2nd place in the medal standings, which prioritize golds. Australia leads with 35, followed by Canada with 13 and England with 10. Canada ranks 3rd in total medals with 35, trailing the Aussies with 80 and the English with 43. Final day of competition in the pool features Leando taking another crack at his 2nd medal of the Games after his 4th place finish in the 100-meter freestyle. The back-to-back Commonwealth 100-meter butterfly champion will race in the men's 50 butterfly at around 2:50 p.m. today Eastern Time. Other Canadian medal hopefuls include Angus in the women's 200-meter breaststroke. Sophie Angus, I believe her name is. The finals at 2:13 p.m. Eastern, and Sebastian Massaby in the men's 50-meter freestyle S7 category. Final at 3:16. Massaby won Paralympic gold in the 50-meter freestyle S4 in 2024. Canada will also be looking to qualify for the women's and men's 4x100 medley relay finals at 4:20 and 4:31 p.m. respectively. Mass and Leando could potentially swim in those races. The qualifying heats began this morning. Canada's top contender in track and field today is Sarah Mitten in the women's shot put final at 3 o'clock p.m. And she's the defending Commonwealth Games champion who took silver at the 2023 World Championships before capturing back-to-back indoor world titles in 24 and 25, followed by an indoors silver this year. Olympic men's 4x100 champion Brendan Roddy will line up for the opening round of the men's 200 meter. Did so earlier this morning, while his relay teammate Aaron Brown enjoys a bye into Thursday's semi-finals. And then a couple of other Canadians to watch. The world champions men's and women's 3x3 wheelchair basketball team both face England in the semi-finals today. Two Canadian boxers can clinch a medal by winning their quarterfinal bouts. There's Amber Jane Wall in the women's 51 kilogram weight class, and Joshua Ofori in the men's 80 kilogram weight class. And Canada has an athlete in all three weightlifting events being disputed today. Rosalie Dumas in the women's 77 kilogram division, Alex Belmar in the men's 94 kilogram, and Rose Baudouin in the women's 86 kilogram. So hopefully lots for us to watch, and we will have another day of multiple medals to celebrate tomorrow. But congratulations to our Canadian athletes. Once again, excellent ambassadors, making us proud. That's all I got for you today. We'll see you tomorrow at our usual time. Hopefully, this experiment of a nooner worked very well. We'll see what the results give us in terms of viewership. But until we see you tomorrow, amour et bisous. And take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.